Hey, we're back again for the third time.
And the final time.
And the final time. Third strike. But no, just getting right back. Just getting back in black on it. Whole point being is that bad storylines, to me, in my opinion, are just they're generated first from the inconsistencies. The topic obviously has to be on point. I think we both agree on that. I think all three of us agree with that, in fact. But I think that, like I said, we got to talk about what makes a great storyline. Obviously, consistency is one of those things. But I also look at people like Pixar. Pixar tells excellent stories every time they step. Guys, I honestly thought they told every story they could tell when they did Toy Story. This latest Toy Story was amazing. Everything from Duke Kaboom to Rabbit and the Bunny being Key and Peele, which was too funny, just too funny. From just every element of that storyline, from Buzz Lightyear not necessarily being the focus, but not necessarily being away from the main part of the storyline. Woody finding his own way. There was a lot of great elements within that storyline, and I think Pixar exemplifies what it is to write a story. Yeah. Thomas, I know you had some things, because I know you were a real big studier of Pixar and their storytelling style.
Yeah, because I like one of the things that they said, because they had like a whole little bullet point guide of how they tell their stories and what they can do or can't do. And I know one of the things they were saying, like, you can use, coincidence to get the characters into trouble, but you can't use coincidence to get the characters out of trouble. So it can't just be like something like, oh, it seems like the character's about to meet their end, and then all of a sudden, oh, like this happened, and well, everything's okay now, And so I think there's a lot of storylines, unfortunately, that do that, where I don't know if the writers just run out of ideas, or otherwise the time constraints of the story that they're trying to tell, and all of a sudden something whimsical happens, and the characters are just propelled to the next point. Yeah. So like I really felt that way about, hate to beat up on Star Wars Episode 9 too much, but like I remember, like right at the beginning of the storyline, like they're searching for this planet that apparently Palpatine has been on for however long.
Yeah, for years.
The Sith planet, and it's
Exo, or whatever it's called.
And it's been so long that Luke, Han, and Lando were actually searching for this planet before, but they gave up after they couldn't find it. Well, like less than 20 minutes after Rey and them land on this planet, they find the dagger that leads them to the planet. And it's just like, all right, guys, like, so Luke and them have been searching for decades, and y'all just got here and found it in minutes. Like, so it's just like the I know it's all fiction at the end of the day, right? But it's the believability of the story,
because it's super convenient. Yeah, it's like, as much as I love a lot of Japanese storylines, I'll even have to criticize a little bit here. And even though I love the series, One Piece, it has a lot of plot, convenient characters for specific reasons, and and as Pixar said, you can use that coincidence to get somebody in trouble, but not out. But One Piece, as much as I love it, in these last few arcs, we've gotten the Straw Hats into issues, and then some character has this super convenient way to fix things, and all of a sudden everything is okay. It's like, like for instance, in the last chapter, Otama, she's basically been in Wano since the very beginning of the arc, so she's been there since chapter 9-11. It's chapter 10-17 now. So you're talking about 100 plus chapters she's been in for, in our current timeline, she's been in the story for almost 3 years come July. It'll be 3 years since we've been introduced to her character, but her devil fruit ability gives her the ability to control her animals. Well, half of Kaido's forces are made up of these guys called gifters. Yeah. These gifters have eaten these devil fruits called smiles, to where they become half animal, half human. Well, her devil fruit power, since it controls animals, it controls the animal inside of them. Therefore, it now turned all the gifters into allies of the Straw Hat Pirates, because they were all getting overwhelmed by the pleasurers and and waiters. And I was like, okay, we can argue since she's been in here since chapter 9-11. Oh, it's not really a plot convenience, but it's like, no, it is, because it's like, there was no way for the Straw Hats to get past this issue. If she didn't have this ability, they're not getting out of this.
And just to add a little context to it, the Straw Hats go into this battle. What was it, like 6-1 virtually?
It was 5,000 to 30,000.
Yeah, so basically like 6-1 ratio odds. They go to war, and now the war is beginning to turn into their favor. And we've always kind of known that she would kind of be like this person that would kind of have a great, ability to sway the war, if you will. But the way that he wrote the storyline, in my opinion, he wrote it too top heavy.
Yeah.
It's too top heavy. There should have been a balance. And then there should have been the challenge of survival. And then it should, and it's gotten so many people who are so fixated, because as fans of storytelling, again, I'm more of a fan of the storytelling aspect of it. I'm not so much a fan of the storyline from time to time, because the storyline can be wildly inconsistent. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to accept One Piece because One Piece go One Piece, right?
Yeah.
It's like Dragon Ball Z. I love Dragon Ball, right?
Everything's about the most next powerful character.
Yeah.
And then the next powerful character.
And it's a revolving door, as we just talked about with in Star Wars Palpatine, how if he can just bring himself back to life, well, then what's to stop him from doing it again?
Just give up.
It's let him win, because otherwise he's just gonna keep coming back over and over and over again.
You had this totally inconvenient plot, and it was just sad too, because they had Emperor Snoke. Snoke, you heard his name? It rhymes with smoke. And it's like, they build this character up, and then out of nowhere, he gets done and his tongue is hanging out. And it's almost like,
he's taking out like a dog.
It's like, this is how you guys are handling and I want you to understand something. And when we're talking about how you handle a storyline, well, let's look at how they've always handled their villains within Star Wars, right? The only character to really die of an embarrassing fashion like that was Jabba the Hutt, right? Mm-hmm. And Jabba the Hutt was a joke as a villain, period, because he was a slug. He's a giant slug, and I don't think about it for a minute. He's a giant slug, and he goes and he's the most fierce. And that's what we know him for, basically, And that was funny the way he died. I mean, he had Leia with the chain and everything with the slave girl.
Mm-hmm. He gets killed by his own slave.
You could draw a variety of conclusions from that. I mean, if there's an analogy there. But I mean, that was a comedic aspect of it. But then they do this with just a villain who's supposed to be outright the bad guy. It's like, even with the way that George Lucas has always handled his villains, from Boba Fett to Jango Fett to even as far as Darth Vader, to even Emperor Palpatine, to heck, even Darth Maul, and even Grievous, and even Count Dooku, and so on and so forth. Like, there was never a sense of, this is a cartoon way that this character is going to die, and it's uninspiring. It's just as uninspiring. And that's what bothers me about the latest way of a lot of this storytelling. It's like, again, I don't want to get too hard as a negative on it, because now I want to look at one of the best storylines. I think one of the best storylines I've ever seen is Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight was such a complex storyline, but you're watching it, and you're watching it unfold before you, from when the Joker first shows up on the scene when they're robbing the bank.
Yeah.
And the way that it's unfolding, and you're like, okay, old boy comes out there with the shotgun, and he's fighting and he's not talking like a banker. He's like, you don't know who you're messing with. Mm-hmm. And he's like, my friend, you don't know who you're messing with. And then you have, where as the story is unfolding, you see where Batman is going out there doing his thing, and then he's having to stop the vigilantes. It was like, well, what's the difference between you and us? And he's like, I don't wear a hockey getup. I mean, that's a great story that they did a great job with. It's so great that I honestly can say that in my gut, I feel like The Dark Knight Rises was not, and I know it was not the intended sequel for that movie. And I get it, Heath Ledger died, unfortunately, but that movie was not subsequent. That was supposed to be, I don't even think that movie was supposed to be. I think that they were supposed to go into a totally different direction. I think we can talk about that some other time. But if we're talking about really good storytelling, that's my movie. If I see it on TNT, I stop what I'm doing and I literally watch it. I have it on DVD. I can watch it on demand. That's a movie I literally stop. What's your favorite movies?
I mean, I'll definitely talk about it as far as storylines. I think for me, if I'm talking about a movie storyline, Gladiator is one of my favorite stories out there, period. I think that was a very well put together movie. If I'm talking about, American cinema, American movies, Gladiator is definitely up there. In the world of comic books, I'm going to go with Water 7 from One Piece.
Yeah.
Water 7 / Enies Lobby. There were stakes in that arc,
Yeah.
We could have lost not just Nico, Robin. We were also already losing Mary, that whole ship. It seemed like it had set sail for the last time. The crew felt like it was falling apart. So there were stakes inside of there, and the whole the great moment of I want to live. You had this character who went from wanting to die, who went from feeling like she was nothing, not worth anyone dying for, to asking Luffy, the crew to save her. That was something that we had finally got that moment. That payoff was finally there. From up there, I mean, I can think of a myriad of moments inside of great stories. The whole twist in Bleach. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but the Soul Society arc to me is probably the best beginning arc of any manga series there is, because you don't see it coming.
Yeah.
You do not see when that twist hits you, and you're like, what the? It's like. It was them. They're the ones it hits you completely out of left field, simply for it was masterwork. And there are other moments there, but I'll let Thomas go on and jump in here.
Oh, well, I think for me, it's there's been better movies. Batman is probably my favorite comic book movies, but I will say I think what they were able to accomplish within Marvel's whole Infinity Stone, saga. Just the coordination of all the movies together.
Yeah.
Some of the movies are trash. I didn't like Iron Man 2 or 3. And or other movies. I wasn't the hugest fan of Captain America, the First Avenger, or Thor: The Dark World, or maybe even the original Thor. I wasn't that huge of a fan of. But so there weren't all of the movies weren't masterworks, but the coordination of them all,
definitely
was.
It was what was it, 22 movies or something like that?
Near 21 movies that went into the Infinity War saga to make up the first phase of the Marvel storyline.
Yeah, and it's something that we've never seen it before in movies, to where you can tie in all these different pieces together.
Yeah,
and so I won't say it's easy to create one good movie, because some people have never created one good movie.
Exactly.
But I think it is easier to create one good movie rather than trying to tie in that many movies together.
Yeah,
but they managed to do that really well. Yeah, in a way where when you watch Infinity War, I know Infinity War didn't have as much storyline in it, but it still just felt for what they did was that the pacing was great. You get from one scene to the next without feeling like it's rushed. Sure, you felt man, there's a lot of action in this movie. But you didn't feel okay, guys, they're just rushing. Slow down. They're just rushing from one scene to the next.
Faster and more intense.
And then you get to Endgame, and I'm walking into the movie sort of expecting one thing from Endgame, like, okay, we're picking up from where Infinity War left off. We're going to formulate a plan to, fix things, and then it's sort of like, no, there is no plan to fix things. They tried that already. They lost. 5 years later, here's where the characters are.
Yeah.
And so, like, you end up getting a whole different movie than what you were sort of expecting walking in. So I really felt like those movies, and again, it's not, from an individualistic standpoint, the movies aren't perfect, but what they were able to do as far as like the totality of it, I thought that was a masterwork of, I think who was it, Kevin Feige or, the producer.
Feige.
I felt like he did a really good job tying that whole series in together. I feel like I almost feel like he should go and put his hands on Star Wars, or otherwise they should just give the whole Star Wars series to Jon Favreau because of what he's been able to do with The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars is a mess, if you ask me, and I'm not sure. Maybe I think eventually, like, they play around with Avengers long enough, and too many new hands come in, it could also get like that. So they're not immune to making bad content. But at the same time, like, they've done such a good job. Like the Russo brothers did such a good job with, Winter Soldier to Civil War to both the Infinity War movies or Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
And they've done an amazing job. And then hopefully they continue to work with them. Hopefully the Russo brothers continue to stay in those movies because, like, again, they just did a really good job with those. So I think that would be sort of my highlight pick for this sort of topic of what's good storytelling. Like, that was like masterwork, if you ask me.
So then, as we get ready to conclude, because obviously, man, we literally put close to an hour worth of the stuff between our intermissions and so on and so forth, and it's close to midnight now.
Texas time.
I would like to ask this question. What are your 3 defining elements of what makes a great storyline? And I'd like to start with Thomas, because I've always admired your perspective on. I know you read like a book. My brother Thomas is a book. It's sculpted as he is with his 24-inch pythons. He's a real big bookworm. And I know that he's very experienced with even writing a lot of stuff. I would like to know, what are your 3 elements that make a great storyline?
I feel like, and there's many elements, but like, I feel like one thing you have to have is consistency. Mm-hmm. You can't have a story that's moving with convenience of, this isn't, or we need to get from here to there, and we're just going to throw anything in there. It has to be consistent. So whatever the storyline is, it can be Star Wars, it can be Lord of the Rings, but if it's not consistently built within the rules of the story, which is, I think, the biggest discrepancy between episodes 1 through 6 versus 7 through 9, is that 7 through 9 seems to just throw out the whole playbook that you've come to know from 1 through 6. So I would say just the consistency of the storytelling. And then I would say, like, one of my favorite things is to see somebody try to do new things in a story or in movies, storytelling altogether. Like, that's why I really like Christopher Nolan, because when I watch a movie of his, it doesn't feel like he's just doing something that's sort of Hollywood formula. Like, Hollywood has its own formulas for how to make movies. And, you go and watch Inception, you watch The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, you watch, Interstellar, which is my personal favorite movie. And you watch something like Tenet, something he just came out with, and you see him, like, stretching to, like,
play with concepts.
Yeah, what can I create that's not out there already?
Yeah.
And, that's not always a focus of Hollywood. In Hollywood, they're super focused on the next reboot. And, this movie was famous, 30 years ago. Let's start that up again. And rather than that, he seems to be trying to constantly, what isn't being done? Like, what's a concept nobody's exploring? Interstellar is a very, interesting movie to me, because it's like, there isn't really even a bad guy in the movie. There's not necessarily a plot in a general in a sort of general fashion. It's more like here's a storyline, and here's the characters who are sort of driving,
living within it.
And so it's and I'm not gonna say it's the most original story, but it's still something like it's a concept, and they're trying to play with time and gravity and all these different things. And I would say for a third element, it's just interesting characters. So almost in that same way where the storyline needs to be interesting, I do feel like the characters themselves need to be memorable. Like one of my favorite storylines recently that I was able to watch from Giddington was Full Metal Alchemist. And
you finished it?
Yeah.
Oh man!
And like my personal favorite character in that whole series is Roy Mustang.
Yeah,
and like he's like a bad dude type of character. So but like you have to have those interesting characters. Han Solo is one of those guys. Like I said, Roy Mustang. If you don't have the interesting characters, like you can have a really interesting movie. I know like that was some people's complaint about a movie like Inception, was that they didn't feel like the characters were very interesting. And I don't know. I felt like I don't know that I really agree with that. I guess I can see the point. If you look back and like, well, what makes Ellen Page's character or Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character so interesting?
I thought it was their chemistry.
Yeah.
I thought it was everybody's chemistry.
Yeah. I really liked the movie. To me, the movie was borderline flawless. I know that was a complaint from a few people, but I do think that, some of the best storylines that we've ever seen are stories where it's like that character was memorable.
Yeah.
And not just like, you can have the really good concepts, you can have consistency, but if you have boring characters that nobody cares about, at the same time, it's still just like a hit or miss type of story. So
I appreciate you bringing up Full Metal. Tyson?
Yeah, I'd say what makes as Thomas said, it is consistency. Because if the story doesn't have consistency, then what's the point? And I'd say that another element, especially in series that have an ensemble cast, you have your main character, but then you have your ensemble cast. You have to be able to get away from your main character in a storyline. That's one thing that One Piece used to do very well. Skypiea, the reason why Skypiea is one of my favorite arcs in One Piece, because we get away from Monkey D. Luffy. We put Luffy inside of Nala, the giant snake, and then we focus on Zoro, Robin, Nami, Sanji, Chopper, and Usopp. We focus on the other Straw Hats for a change. We let them get in their exchanges. We let them find out about what's going on. That's been one of my issues with my hero as of late, is that it's all about Deku now. You started off with this ensemble cast, and now let's follow Deku down this dark tropey storyline where I'm gonna close off everybody to myself. I saw that on Naruto. I've seen it in every major storyline. That you can't show me anything different with this, and I think that if you're gonna have an ensemble cast, I think that's what Oda did very well in Skypiea, is that we got away from Luffy. Yeah. I say that's one problem that the New World has suffered from, is that it's all about Luffy now. And then when you have the other Straw Hats do something like fight commanders, you're kind of like, how? Like, these guys went from getting chased out by, Vice Admiral characters. So now they're going against commander level guys. And Zoro's going toe to toe with the Yonko. It's like, it was like, how, where did this happen?
We know how this happened.
And that's one of the issues that I think most guys have, is that when they have a large cast, but then you only focus on the main character, everything else suffers from it.
I'll second that, because I think that was my biggest pet peeve with the whole Dragon Ball Z series, is that you had all these other characters, and really beyond Goku and Vegeta, like it was kind of like, what's even the point of having Piccolo and Krillin
Gohan,
and Tien and whoever else? It's like, all y'all gonna do is sit around watching everybody else get beat up
and get in
like,
the way.
Exactly,
And
get in the
like,
way, and then you're gonna die
uh,
and get wished back, only for Goku to
Yeah.
come down and
It's
use
like,
this new form.
No, you're never
win the
gonna
fight.
beat the main bad guy. You're never
Exactly.
gonna like. So it was almost like, what's the point of even having these other characters? They're just in the way at some point.
Exactly,
You know?
and then and that's the thing is that so I'd say that any author that can get away from the main cast but still keep you intrigued with the story, because you also have to be able to keep me intrigued with the story that you're telling.
Yeah.
And I think Oda did a very great job of that in Skypiea and in Thriller Bark, because Luffy also went away in Thriller Bark as well. Folks also forget that Luffy wasn't seen in Thriller Bark for like 8 to 10 chapters, and then when he finally comes back as Nightmare Luffy. It's where it's like, we got away from him for a time, and the other characters carried the load until he came back inside of the storyline. So I think that, consistency being number one, then for you being able to keep me interested in your story without the main character there. And then I would say story writing, because even as consistent as Oda can be, and even as great as some of his characters can be, Oda has had some bad writing stints. As much as people want to talk about how like One Piece is peak fiction, in my opinion, Whole Cake Island was a terrible arc. It was a poorly written arc. It was poorly thought out, in my opinion. There are many factors that I can bring up to you and show you what I am talking about. But I would say to a strong point, with like great, something that I'll point out to as great writing. Obviously, as he mentioned, the whole movie lineup leading up to Infinity War. If you haven't watched, I don't know why you haven't, but if you haven't watched Winter Soldier, which to me is the best Marvel movie still to this day, do yourself a favor and go watch Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
The writing in that movie is the best out of any Marvel movie, any Marvel film that they've done up to this point, because the writing is great, it's consistent, and it makes sense. When you set up a precedent and then you magically write that precedent out of the way because you don't know how to get around it, that's a sign of bad writing.
Yeah.
And that's what Oda did a number of times in Whole Cake Island, is that he set up a precedent and then, I can't think of a way around it. Let me just magic it out of the way. And, when you grow up and you think about things critically and you're like, that really didn't make any sense. That's when you could tell that a writer, it might be a bad case of writer's block, or it just might be a way that they can't, realistically think of a way around it. And so I think that what they did do with Winter Soldier, with the writing in that movie, was that, it was great from beginning till end. Even in Civil War, another film that was just great from beginning to end, consistent, great storytelling, to where everything just flowed. Nothing was forced. Everything flowed very well. So consistency, strength of characters, and writing, to me, is what makes a great story for any film, manga, or a comic.
I'm gonna be quick about mine because I think they basically covered up all the bases. But I tried thinking of it like this. I think intrigue, which can be very ambiguous, but it's a very big word. Intrigue is important to me because I think intrigue is what strikes the imagination. One of my favorite storylines, one of my favorite book series, honestly, is the Lord of the Rings book series. And I'm not talking about just the Lord of the Rings books like The Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return. I'm talking about the whole universe, from the Silmarillion to the Children of Hurin, to all these others, to the stories of Tom Bombadil, to the stories of Middle-earth, to the stories of the Numenor, all these other things. It's the intrigue, I think, that does it for me, because the intrigue starts with the foundation, right? You gotta see a world that is not easily seen. You gotta see something beyond just the words that are coming to you off the page. And I know it sounds crazy because it's so ambiguous, but I want you to imagine, if you will, you're inside of a dark room, you've got a candle with you, and you're reading a book. And you're reading a book that's so engrossing that it's making you feel like you're living within the book itself, to where the dark shadows begin to look like the characters that you're reading about. And you can imagine the fields, you can imagine the ring wraiths, you can imagine the worm dragons, you can imagine the different elements that created it. It's the intrigue, though, because it isn't just so much about just the world, it's about what draws you to that world.
Yeah.
There are plenty of book series that I've written, that I've read, where they were just boring. They were just boring. From the jump, they were boring. They were boring, and no matter how hard I tried to get into it, it never picked up for me. It never got me. It never grabbed my imagination. I think that intrigue is such an important thing to have. The other thing is the plot, the driving elements of the plot. If I don't have a reason as to why to even read this or why to even spend my time with it, I'm gone. Like, I have access to Funimation. Thank you, Tori. I have access to Crunchyroll. Again, thank you, Tori. I have access to HBO Max. Thank you, me. I have access to all these different things. Even Netflix and so on and so forth. And I've seen people try to tell me, this is so great. If I'm not feeling it within the first few minutes, the plot is off, I'm out. I'm out. What clearly got me was within the Game of Thrones, within the very first season, automatically I thought of a heavy metal version of Lord of the Rings. And heavy metal, not some other music, I'm talking about the comic book, if you will, right? If you don't know, you will know by the time, because I guarantee you'll Google it, right? But it reminded me very much of a heavy metal version of Lord of the Rings because of the different families, the elements of this world. There's clearly a sense of magic there, and there's clearly a sense of law and order, and so on and so forth. But at the very end of season one, there, even the very beginning of it, but also the very end of it, you see the inference of winter is coming. Mm-hmm. You see the inference of the whites. You see the inference of those elements that can't be so easily explained, as they live in a very, very real and carnal world. So, but that plot, that device that plays in the background amongst other storylines, again, the plot has got to be driving. It's got to have it. So we hit with intrigue, we hit with the driving plot. I gotta say, it's the characters that live within that world.
Yeah, it has to make sense. It has to pull you in, because if it doesn't, it's
why am I reading
this?
Yeah.
You know?
I'll say this, and I'm going to piggyback off of both of y'all, from One Piece to Full Metal Alchemist. One Piece, Zoro has always been my favorite character. Even though I love Luffy, Luffy's a wonderful character. Zoro has always been my favorite character, because there's something about somebody who's willing to die for what he believes in that strikes the match of my imagination. Mm-hmm. Full Metal Alchemist, I watched it both as a young man, and I watched it now as a father. When I watched it as a young man, it was just a good storyline. Mm-hmm. When I watched it as a father, I nearly cried when I saw Hohenheim for the first time. And I understood when you become a father, when you've lived through stuff and you see things differently, it's like you understand that he was sacrificing him being with his wife, him being with his children, to go and make sure that his babies did not have to grow up in the jacked up world that he knew was coming. Mm-hmm. That's what broke his heart into a million pieces. But you won't know that until you become a dad, which is exactly why it's almost like an origami effect, if you will, right? Because in origami, you fold so much into these different devices. It's so much goes into making that, right? But it definitely also goes back to the principle of C.S. Lewis. Well, if the story is only written for kids, it's not even worth being written. If you can't read the story that's a kid's story as an adult, then it's not even worth the paper that is written on. Yeah. And so that's what I love about characters like that, is that they're inspiring. Goku may not be the densest, thickest, bestest character, But Goku has one thing going for himself. People want to see what happens next with him.
Yeah.
Naruto may not be the coolest character in his own series. Honestly, it's Sasuke. Be real here. It really is. But you want to see if he becomes Hokage. You want to see if he becomes the top ninja of his village. You want to see if he garners the honor and respect that he so desperately thirsts for. You know, those types of characters are what drive it. Ichigo from Bleach to Jujutsu Kaisen, the main character there. There's actually two main characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, actually, from the king to the boy who eats the fingers and everything like that, who's building his body back. There's so many great elements to a great storyline, but I really feel like we kind of all summed it all up. And I think that we've already discussed what makes a terrible storyline.
Mm-hmm.
And then to redeem ourselves, we talked about what makes a great storyline. So I think we're all done, right?
Okay, we're good. I gotta get ready for bed.
Yeah, I gotta get ready for bed too. And my wife is probably like, "This Negro is up to the middle of the night with his brothers." And Thomas, it's good to have you back in time.
Sure.
And man, I hope we all get to do this again real soon.
Yeah.
Real soon.
And guys,
We'll talk about that One Piece chapter tomorrow.
Yes.
We got too late today, but we'll talk about it tomorrow. For sure.
Definitely. You guys have a blessed night. Hope you guys enjoyed your weekend. And let's get ready for Monday because it's already here.
Already here.
Later.
Later.